大家好, I'm Martin, and welcome to Short Stories, brought to you by the National Taichung University of Science and Technology Language Center. Today's short story is called Vasilisa the Beautiful. It is a traditional Russian fairy tale that was first written down by Alexander Afanasyev. Did I pronounce that correctly? Probably not. Anyway, this is a well-known story in Russia, and I have rewritten it for you here. It has a lot of similarities to Cinderella, except instead of a fairy godmother, she has a horrible child-eating witch, because it's Russian. All right, before I get started, I will read the vocabulary and vocabulary example sentences. And after I have read the story, I will give you the listening comprehension questions. Okay, let's get this ball rolling. Vocabulary. Merchant. Merchant. The merchant sold a lot of products this year. Heartbroken. Heartbroken. He was heartbroken after his dog died. Hard-hearted. Hard-hearted. He saw the homeless man on the street, but was too hard-hearted to care. Let loose. Let loose. He let the dog loose, and it chased a squirrel. Humiliating. Humiliating. Failing the exam was the most humiliating thing to happen to me. To no avail. To no avail. I tried to cook dinner, but to no avail. Timidly. Timidly. The mouse timidly looked out from his hole. Skull. Skull. The archaeologist found several human skulls. Incinerate. Incinerate. The furniture was incinerated in the house fire. Astounding. Astounding. I learned many astounding facts at school. The story. A long time ago in Moscow, there lived a wealthy merchant and his family. He had a lovely wife and a beautiful daughter named Vasilisa. When Vasilisa was just 8 years old, her mother became very ill. On her deathbed, she gave her daughter a wooden doll and said, "When you are in dire need, just give this doll some food and water, and it will help you." Vasilisa didn't understand and was too heartbroken to think about it. After her mother died, she kept the doll in her pocket and hugged it when she felt sad. A few years later, the merchant decided to remarry. He married a well-respected widow who had 2 daughters of her own. The merchant thought it would be good for his daughter to have some playmates. Unfortunately, they were not very friendly to Vasilisa. The stepmother was especially hard-hearted toward her. She always gave her own daughters the nicest things and gave Vasilisa their old, unwanted items. Things were worse when her father was away, which was quite often. During those times, the stepmother's cruelty was let loose. She was always demanding Vasilisa do hard labor around the house. She had to cook, scrub the pots, mop the floor, clean out the fireplace, and other humiliating tasks. Vasilisa felt so lonely and helpless that she always complied. She didn't have the emotional strength to fight back. Instead, she just hugged her wooden doll every night before she went to sleep. One day, the merchant went on a business trip as he usually did. Unfortunately for Vasilisa, this time he did not return. No one knew what happened to him. After a year, everyone assumed he died. The family soon found itself running out of money. The stepmother sold their house in Moscow and moved the family to a cottage in the countryside. While in the countryside, things got even worse for Vasilisa. Not only were her mother and father gone, but now the home she grew up in was too. She felt lonelier than ever. On a moonless night, the fire inside the cottage suddenly went out. The stepmother tried to get it restarted, but to no avail. "The wood must be damp," she said. "Vasilisa, go into the forest and gather some fresh firewood." Vasilisa protested. She said, "But it's so dark, I could get lost." "Or eaten by Baba Yaga," giggled the wicked stepsisters. The stepmother scolded Vasilisa until she agreed to go out. While Vasilisa was walking through the forest, a dense mist surrounded her. She quickly became disoriented. She had no idea where she was. She saw a faint light in the distance and followed it. When she got closer, she realized that she had stumbled upon Baba Yaga's house. Baba Yaga's house was an old, broken-down cottage that sat on a pair of giant chicken legs. It was surrounded by a fence made of human bones. Vasilisa noticed that the skulls in the fence had an eerie glow in their empty eye sockets. She shuddered in fear, took out her doll, and held it tight. Just then, Baba Yaga flew down in her mortar and shouted, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" Vasilisa timidly told Baba Yaga her name and where she came from. Baba Yaga looked at the doll, smiled, and said, "What do you want?" Vasilisa said that her stepfamily needed some light. Baba Yaga told her that she could give her some light, but that she would have to work for it. Vasilisa nodded her head in agreement. Baba Yaga put Vasilisa to work right away. This is her list of chores: clean the house, pick out the poppy seeds from a pile of sand, and record the movements of the 3 horsemen who rode past every day. Vasilisa sighed in despair. "How am I going to do all those things by myself?" she thought to herself. Just then, she heard a small voice come from her pocket. It was the doll. It said in a very weak voice, "Feed me." Vasilisa gave it a crust of bread from her other pocket and a sip of water from a nearby stream. The doll was able to speak clearly now. It gave Vasilisa instructions on how to perform each task. It also seemed to give her extra strength and speed. When Baba Yaga returned, she was surprised to see all of the chores were completed. "You're quite the remarkable child," she said. "A deal's a deal," the witch continued. "You may take one of my skulls with you back to your realm. Go before I change my mind." Vasilisa took a skull from the fence and put it on a tall staff. She used the light from the skull to guide her back to her house. When Vasilisa arrived back at her own cottage, she noticed that all the lights were out, but the moon was shining. "That's strange. There wasn't a moon when I left," she said. She went into the house and found her stepsisters huddled together in a corner. "She's back!" they both shouted. The stepmother stepped forward and said, "Where have you been? It's been 2 months since you left." The stepmother explained that they have been unable to light a fire in the cottage, not even a candle. Vasilisa noticed that her stepfamily looked thin, dirty, and frightened.
"Give us the light," said the younger stepsister. Vasilisa shook her head. "Give us the light," said the older stepsister. "I don't want to," replied Vasilisa. Finally, the stepmother stepped forward and demanded, "Give me the light right now." Vasilisa looked her dead in the eye, stamped the staff on the floor, and said, "No." Just then, a beam of light shot out of the skull's eye sockets, incinerating the stepmother and her wicked daughters. After that, Vasilisa knew that she couldn't stay in the cottage anymore. She rode the family horse back to Moscow and found a job at a bakery. She was living independently for several months when an old man walked into the bakery. They stared at each other for a minute. "He looks so familiar," Vasilisa thought to herself. At that moment, she had an astounding realization. Her father had returned. The two hugged each other joyfully. The father explained that his merchant ship had been lost at sea, and he just recently returned to Moscow. Vasilisa told him everything, and he told her that he would never leave town without her again. They both lived long and happy lives after that. Now the listening questions. Number 1. What did Vasilisa's mother give her before she died? A. A wooden doll. B. A magic skull. C. A flying mortar. D. A new sister. The answer is A. A wooden doll. Question 2. What word best describes the stepmother? A. Mean. B. Heartless. C. Pitiless. D. All of the above. The answer is D. All of the above. Question 3. How was Vasilisa able to complete all of Baba Yaga's tasks? A. With the help of her magic wooden doll. B. With the help of her magic skull. C. With the help of her stepsisters. D. With Baba Yaga's help. The answer is A. With the help of her magic wooden doll. Question 4. What was Vasilisa's personality after she left Baba Yaga's house? A. Confident. B. Timid. C. Cowardly. D. All of the above. The answer is A. Confident.
That is the end of today's short story, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And I hope you also enjoyed the moral lesson here about becoming a strong and independent person. So I think that's a good lesson for everybody. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.